Well, thanks for coming on.
Sure, man.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I like to keep it super casual. So I was thinking it's kind of funny how we've known each other. So I was 12, so almost 20 years, right? Which is kind of crazy.
You're 32 now?
I'm 30.
30.
So yeah,
Okay.
almost
18
20, 18 years,
okay.
yeah. But it's just funny how we've never like sat down and had like a conversation before. It's just kind of
Past due.
it's kind of crazy, but
Shame on us.
yeah. No, but there's obviously there's like a lot. I feel like I know about like the surface of you, but I feel like I'd love to just get to know more about like your. I love to figure out like with my guests what makes people tick, what motivates them, what inspires them, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But for you, what would you say for you is like the hardest thing you've ever done in your life?
Oh, man. That's a good question. I'll have to think about it for a sec.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough
The
one.
mission's up there. Probably the mission. Trying to think since then if there's anything that's like really, in terms of like where the thing is difficult,
Like
and
yeah,
and you're like, you question whether I'm gonna
succeed or
I'm
not
gonna
succeed
or keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like obviously football is hard, but and like difficult, and not that I was like some all pro or anything like that, but it's obviously hard to do in football, but it's not like there was never a point along the way where it was like I felt like, oh man, maybe I should just quit,
Yeah.
It was always, and there was lots of adversity in football too, but so like in football I worked really hard, and making it to the NFL is obviously hard, but it wasn't like any point along the time I was like, oh man, maybe this isn't for me or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas like the mission is hard, and there are those points where you're like, oh man, should I be here? Is this worth it?
Yeah. Why do you feel like the mission was that way?
And yeah, so everyone's experience is different, as you know, and a lot of that is dictated by where you go. And
you were in Canada?
I went to Canada.
Canada, okay.
Toronto, Canada, yeah. And so like the circumstances there, the weather, the people, the food, there's all this stuff that like plays into it. And so for my mission specifically, weather was tough for part of the year.
Yeah. The cold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the weather was tough for part of the year. The food was great, so I didn't have any issues there. I had siblings and friends that went to South America and Africa, and they're sick the whole time, and and dealing with that kind of stuff. Like one of my brothers went to Brazil, and he got worms. He got bit by a wild dog. He had to get rabies shots.
Oh shoot!
Just all sorts of stuff. Fungus on his body. Just basically just like health issues the whole 2 years.
Yeah.
So like Canada, I didn't have any of that with the food, because the food was fine. Like we got fed really well. But like the struggle for me, and then the struggle for that mission, is like people listening to you. Canada's kind of a European mindset, kind of a more proud, a less God-fearing by nature, and just not really interested. And so like for me specifically, it was tough because I had kind of been taught. Well, I had been taught, and I had a track record of you work hard and you succeed. You work hard and you succeed. You work hard, you succeed.
You're talking about like in football?
Everything. School was like that.
Yeah.
Of course, sports are like that. So that's kind of and I hadn't like entered the workforce yet, but I'd seen that pattern with my dad, and like that's what he taught us: is you work hard, you succeed, right?
Yeah.
So I just naive, young. I assume I'm going to go out here, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to succeed.
Yeah.
And my, you're young, and your reference for success is baptisms.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I had gone a whole year and had no baptisms.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked really hard. I followed all the rules. I did everything. I got up early, just went above and beyond.
Yeah.
And it was tough, because then it's like, you start to think, well, why am I here? What's the point? And I could be at home working on football, and
yeah.
So I don't know. That's a long
that makes sense, and I think it's cool you brought that up, because I feel like that's kind of how I was for a long time with just the gospel in general. Like I viewed it similarly to school and football, because sometimes this is where I'm like a big proponent of I love education, but school was like, and I got good grades, like I was high honor roll all the time, but I just never clicked for me, like the importance of school. It was just tough for me, and but I always got good grades, and so I would it put this thing in my head of like, okay, if you just kind of if you just work hard, then you can get like the result that you want, or a good result, or whatever. And I think that's true to an extent, but like with the gospel, I viewed it that way for a long time, and it was almost like Chris Christopherson talks about this as like, you view the gospel as a vending machine, or you obey this commandment, you get this result, you get this blessing, and that's how it was for me for a long time, until I kind of shifted my mindset. But I can relate to that with my mission, because like baptisms weren't hard in Argentina, right? It was pretty easy to find people that wanted to devote themselves to God and whatever. But in terms of, I guess, my own development, spiritually, mentally, all that kind of stuff, I feel like that was probably one of the hardest things for me too, is like understanding what real success is and what results you actually want, whether it's a number result or it's like your internal, your character, all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. But how do you feel like the mission prepared you for, I guess, the rest of your life?
Oh man, there's so many things. I don't know. I heard someone the other day mention something. Oh, I think it was at church. Young kid, pre-mission. He's like a priest or something. I think he mentioned something about like learning how to get along with companions, and I think he said something like, "I'm sure I'll have companions that I won't get along with," and I was like, "Oh, you wait, buddy." And it's different. Like, it's one thing when there's people that you don't get along with, and you interact with them a lot throughout the day or whatever. It's another thing, as you know, when you're with that person 24 hours a day. Yeah. And so like that right there was great. Just like learning, things that matter, things that don't, like just people skills, and like patience, and also like humility, and like, well, this thing that I think I care about doesn't matter that much, and it's not important to, in the context of what we're trying to accomplish here together, and stuff like that. So I mean, that was huge. Time management, the time management things are critical. Like, you have a busy schedule, and you gotta stay on top of that. Going back to like being hard, just perseverance and work ethic, and being like someone that the other missionaries can count on, your investigators can count on, the wards, that they can count on. There's so many things. Like, honestly, I mean, bias or whatever, I think it's the greatest laboratory of life preparation anywhere. Like, I don't think there's anything that compares to it. And in every aspect of life, it will absolutely make you better off than anything else that you could do. Yeah.
No, I think it's kind of interesting with the space that I'm in, like with Door to Door. I feel like every summer we go out, it's like a mini mission a little bit, because like, and it's mostly just the mentally draining aspect of it, the grind of it. Like because it's basically the same thing. Obviously, you don't have like the rules, right? Yeah. But the time on the doors is like, I always tell guys, it's like sacred, and you'll get more self-development doing this than like anything else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that was probably the thing for me with being in Argentina because I imagine for you being in Canada, because I had a lot of friends that were there too,
Mm.
and they struggled with baptisms.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it was like the goal was like 2,000 in the year, and I was like, golly,
For
like,
your mission?
Yeah, for the mission, and I was just
Jeez.
like, yeah, like this is
Our
insane.
mission would get like 300.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like obviously it was a little bit easier
Jeez.
where I was, but for me, I honestly feel like there was more development that it was kind of like a lagging development that came with for me after the mission,
Yeah.
like getting into football and then like knocking doors. And I think it's just because there were certain things I needed to find out about myself that I didn't get to
Yeah.
because baptisms were so easy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I feel like I could have relied more on God for like different things.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think for you that you probably got a lot more of that just because it was so hard
Mm.
to get the number goal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's really cool.
Different struggle.
So with for those of you that obviously don't know Bryan, he obviously he's an all-star at BYU and then went on to play. Was it 7 years?
6.
6. Okay.
Should have been 7.
6. Should have been 7.
Should have been 17.
Yeah.
I should still be playing.
Yeah,
Six.
you're still athletic enough to play.
6 years.
So with that whole career, like, what do you feel? Because obviously, like with football, it's a pretty statistically a short-lived career.
Yeah.
Like, what do you feel like was the biggest adversity that you faced
In
through all
football?
that? Yeah.
That's another good question. I think just like rising above setbacks. I mean, it's hard. I can't really speak for other guys that make it to the NFL. I just really speak for me. But my path there wasn't a straight path. Meaning I wasn't always like the best player on my team. I wasn't always starting. I wasn't always just positioned for the premium, right?
Are you referring to the NFL or like overall?
No, like on the way up there.
Okay.
Like in Little League, in Little League, I got benched. You know, like my second year playing football. Like I remember, like the first game I started both ways, and I don't think I didn't play great, but I don't think I played terrible. But our team played terrible, and anyway, I got benched. And the next game, this is my second season. The next game, I didn't play a single snap, which is like every kid's supposed to play whatever, how many plays.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember I sat my bum on the sideline the whole game.
Yeah.
And, it's just, that was my second year of playing football. And it would have been really easy to get discouraged or to get disenfranchised with football and this sucks, I don't like football,
Yeah.
But my response was always, okay, well, work harder, and I ended up getting back a starting spot and started the rest of the year. But if you look at like my whole Little League and even in high school, the first time that I was like the clear-cut best player on the team was my senior year of high school. And don't get me wrong, I was never a bum. I was always good. But the fact that I didn't play with anybody in Little League or high school that made it to the NFL.
Yeah.
And so you would think that I would have been like the best player on the team every year, right? That's kind of like what you would think. But that for me, that wasn't the case. Like it wasn't until I was a senior in high school that I was the clear cut, like that's the best player on the team.
Yeah.
And so it was just overcoming. And like in high school, like I got benched as a sophomore in high school, so I experienced it there. And then fast forward to BYU, kind of similar at BYU. In my 4 years at BYU, I was a 2-year starter, just my junior and senior year. I played as a freshman and as a sophomore, but I never started. I just rotated.
Yeah.
And when I got there were a lot of other bigger named recruits that came in my draft or my signing class.
Yeah.
And there were other, some of those guys started as freshmen, and I didn't. And I had to work my way into it. But it was just kind of the same thing. I even, when I, in my mind, should have started, especially as a sophomore.
Yeah.
It wasn't, get discouraged. It was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to work harder. And I just kind of did that every year, and then I got better, and then I did start as a junior, and then worked harder, even harder that next year, and then was really good as a senior, and then got drafted. And that was kind of the plan, to work it into the NFL, and it was, kind of following that plan. And then I got hurt. I got my knee injury, and then everybody was not interested. So I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance to see that work pay off the way it did before in the NFL. Partially because of my age. I was 30, and then I had that knee thing.
Which is crazy. Anyway. It just seems so young.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of factors that go into it. I was on a bad team. I was on a 1-year deal. And then I had never been a starter up to that point. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of factors that go into it.
Yeah.
That contributed to it, and it's just unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. So how do you think people? Because I remember I shouldn't compare situations, but I was in a similar situation to you. We went to lunch one time, and I was 4th string at the time. Mm-hmm. How do you think people can not give in to the entitlement that they're oh, I should be starting.
Yeah.
Versus because the actual facts of well, you do have things you need to work on. How do you feel like people can overcome that and become more self-aware?
I think having a perspective of you can only control what you can control. I think that's probably the healthiest, and just be at peace with that. I think football is the greatest sport. I think it's the greatest team sport. It's obviously the one that I enjoy watching the most, that I enjoy playing the most, and all that stuff. And I'm not alone. Football's crazy popular here. I think there's a lot of people that see the value there. One of the knocks on football, as great as it is, one of the knocks on football is that a lot of you as an individual, a lot of your success is in the hands of a coach that determines playing time, that determines scheme, that determines touches if you're on offense, right? And that's completely out of your control. And so I think the healthy way is to just understand that, be aware of that, I can't control that. All I can control is me. All I control is my preparation, my work ethic, and hopefully I get a chance, and hopefully I perform if and when that chance comes. And for some guys, the chance never does come, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I was talking to my old man just not 2 days ago. We were just talking about quarterbacks in the NFL. We were talking about Zach Wilson and Jaron Hall, and just their situations in the NFL and how tough it is. And obviously Zach was a really high draft pick. Yeah. And because of that, he'll get chances. And people that know football know that he went to a really tough situation at the Jets, and it was really hard to succeed there. But we were just talking about how much of success is dictated by things outside of your control. How good the O-line is, how good the system is. Yeah. What kind of faith in you the franchise has. There's just so many things that go into it. And so anyway, back to your question. It's you, at the end of the day, you can only control certain things. Yeah. And you maximize those things, and then let the chips fall where they fall. Yeah. And then you just kind of have to be at peace with it. So. Yeah,
I think that's something I didn't realize when I was playing. Mm-hmm. I definitely felt entitled. Yeah. To if I think I was entitled.
Well, a lot of times you're right. A lot of times you should be playing and you're not. And
yeah. I think it's because I would compare the situation. I had some other buddies who were walk-ons or in scholarships similar to me, and they would not play. Yeah. Or they'd play occasionally, and they'd transfer and they'd be All-Americans. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Yeah. So it's then I'd be well, I should be an All-American.
That happens.
But I don't even.
I remember, so my sophomore year, I didn't start that whole year, and obviously really bothered me. Mm-hmm. And I was part of me thought, oh, this is a waste of a year. I should have just redshirted. Burn a whole year getting spot playing time. Yeah. And towards the end of the year, it was kind of funny. Like me and my buddy Zach, I think you know Zach Erickson.
Oh, I don't think I do.
Me and my buddy, we just happened to be at Temple Square,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this guy. He like starts talking to us. He's like, "Oh, you guys are BYU players, you know." And, long story short, he was a scout. He was an NFL scout. He was in town scouting BYU in Utah, and then he was going through the Temple Square Visitor Center or whatever. And he bumped into us, and we're sitting there talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I was at your practice today." And he asked us like, "What numbers were you guys?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm 41." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw you today. Oh man, you should be starting. I don't know why they're starting those other guys."
Really?
And
Dude, that's gotta be so hard to hear that.
It's hard to hear
You'd
that.
probably
It's
like,
frustrating.
this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Talk about validation.
Man. Yeah, validation.
Here's an NFL scout.
Oh man.
Who's just went to one practice.
I'd be like, I'm transferring.
Just went to one practice and has that feedback.
Yeah.
So it was a bunch of emotions. It's it was frustrating, annoying.
Oh, that'd be so hard.
And it was like total validation where it's like,
because one thing getting it from like your dad or something, but then getting it from like an NFL scout, you're like, okay.
Of course your mom thinks you're the greatest guy,
Yeah.
but this is complete like stranger, unbiased. And so and that's football. So like going back to what I said, football is the greatest, like for sure. I have always been jealous of the individual sports where it's 100% performance based.
Yeah.
Like where there's no coach that decides, well, you play and you don't play. So like boxing and golf, like those are my two things that I'm so jealous because it's just you and your results. And like boxing, if you beat everybody, like there's just nothing in your way, you just rise up. And then track, especially. Track's probably the greatest example. Track is like 100% what you ran, what you threw, whatever, and 100% results. And there's a high correlation of the work that you put in and improvement.
Yeah.
And then there's no like coach deciding. Like
track is tough though, because I do feel like it is 90% genetics.
Oh,
would you not say? Because it's like if you're not fast, you're not gonna.
100%.
Yeah. But no, I agree with you. The individual sport thing. That's
especially for sprinting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like you're talking, it's genetics, and then you have a window of improvement.
Yeah.
That you can
0.01% of improvement that you can
with your effort that you put in. But you can't just go pick someone off the street and they could work harder than anyone's worked in the history of the world.
Yeah.
And they're not making it to the Olympics.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, that's true.
So
if you didn't do football, like what would you have done boxing? Or I know you've done some boxing.
I did a boxing.
You boxed
match.
one of our kickers.
It was a linebacker.
It was definitely one of our kickers. It was one time. Who was it?
It was Boo Anderson.
But okay, there was another
the
guy.
Kicker, Andy Phillips.
Andy,
he boxed.
He didn't box you?
He boxed Riley Nelson.
Okay, I thought you two boxed.
It was a lower
That's
weight
funny.
class.
Lower, okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, they boxed right before our match, and then I was against another linebacker.
Okay. I didn't realize that. I thought you two went against each other.
No.
That's funny.
No, yeah.
But yeah, do you think you would have done that?
Honestly,
if you didn't
it was
play
like
football?
one of the most exhilarating things I've ever done in my life. And like, I've never had the adrenaline that gave me.
Really?
My whole life. Just
because how many people were there?
There were a lot of people there. My whole family was there. I had all these friends there. The stakes were high. Like, I'm a proud person, and you don't want to get embarrassed and on this stage. And I'd never done it before, other than like goofing around with some boxing gloves with friends in high school. But I had never, and it was like real, like, because there were a bunch of matches before the football player matches, and we had headgear on, and I had thought.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Well, I had thought that with headgear, that
it wouldn't hurt as bad, or something.
No, not that, but that you can't get knocked out.
Oh.
And one of the trainers was like, no, like they had mentioned earlier that like you could still get knocked out with headgear. They're like, the point of headgear is so your face doesn't get cut.
Oh.
And I was like,
because I guess you can get knocked out in football.
I was questioning that because I just had thought, I don't know, just ignorant, hadn't boxed, not in that world. So I was under the assumption like, yeah, there's not going to be really knockouts. And in one of the first couple fights, a guy got
Oh
knocked out.
gosh, yeah.
And
You're
then it was like, and I was
God.
sitting there watching it, and it just got so real.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Like, the last thing you want is that to happen in front of all your family and friends, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so all that, like, contributed to the adrenaline.
Oh,
And
I'm sure. Yeah. After
so it was
that too.
it was unreal. It was nothing that I've ever experienced. So, yeah, to answer your question, like, in another life, I would have loved to, as a teenager, like, gone that route and seen what I could have made of it.
Yeah.
Given my genetics. And then also work ethic. Like, yeah, who knows? I would have loved to have seen. But
So me and you obviously were both adopted.
yeah.
And I met my biological father, and the only thing, he didn't ask me like anything about myself. Nothing. Not a single word. Didn't ask about my parents. Didn't ask about like my upbringing. He was just like, hey, because he was a professional MMA fighter.
Oh man.
And only thing he said, okay, we're gonna get you down to 170. We're gonna get you fighting. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it was just the weirdest interaction.
Total agenda.
Oh, total agenda. Yeah, he's like, you're gonna be part of the family business. We're fighting for our countries from Liberia.
Wow.
And yeah, dude, his daughter though, she's like a savage. She's like one of the best in Utah.
It?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. She's a wrestler. Sorry.
Oh.
She's a wrestler.
Wow.
But just.
Well, maybe you missed your.
I know, that's what I'm saying, dude. It's funny. My coach is in at the U. One of our running back coaches. He was like, dude, you run like a wrestler.
Oh,
and I'm
funny.
like, huh?
I don't know what that means, but.
I don't know. That means maybe I'm like bow-legged or something. I don't know. I'm like, maybe I should have did wrestling,
that's too funny.
It's kind of something that's I definitely want to get into it, especially with the popularity growing with like jiu-jitsu and grappling and stuff. It's just seems
whole different thing. It's a whole different animal, and it is exhilarating.
Yeah, no, I bet. Well, so kind of pivoting backwards, tell me about like the adversity you faced in like the NFL.
Oh man. In which way? Like, there's so much adversity.
Yeah, like whether it be political, whether it be the environment, the spiritual adversity.
So, like, the first question you asked me, like, what's the hardest thing you ever did?
Yeah.
And I paused for a while. There's stuff that I could say in the NFL that could fill that question, but it's just I kind of feel lame. I think it's kind of lame. If you're like, oh, poor me in the NFL, like, oh, this is so hard.
Yeah.
Because it kind of comes across as whiny, because it's like, oh, your challenge is that things aren't.
Because you're still making the league minimum, right?
Well, yeah, you're in the NFL,
making...
or you're on the bubble of the NFL, or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you're saying that that's like your life struggle, like, oh, poor you. So
yeah,
I am fully aware of that, and how that seems or how that comes across. Because there's millions of people that have real struggles.
Yes.
Which is, to me, is cancer and, depression, whatever. Like, there's real struggles in this world. So with that caveat being said, the NFL is absolutely tough. And it is mentally, emotionally, spiritually demanding and draining. It's jarring. So, like, I came obviously from BYU, a religious institution. We started our every meeting with a prayer and a spiritual thought. Like, it's just
that's got to be a crazy
very
change.
Very different atmosphere. And so it's just to go from that, and then you go to the NFL, and it's just really jarring because the atmosphere is just so different, obviously. And you're aware that that's going to be the case, but it's still an adjustment, and it's shocking. And like,
that'd be hard.
Just the language and the culture, even more than the language, is the culture. Like, and by that I mean like the interests and topics of discussion and lifestyles of not just the teammates but also the coaches. Yeah. And it's just so different than BYU and Provo. Yeah. And so that's like a shock. And then on top of that, this is the greatest athletes in the world, and football is a violent sport. Every play, someone wants to rip your head off. And so you're dealing with all that, and you got to adjust to this violent game. And then and also it's like PhD level complicated in terms of the mentality of football, of the NFL football. A lot of people don't realize that. I didn't realize that.
What are you referring to? Like
how complex the schemes are. It is.
Which is interesting. Okay, this is me totally stereotyping, but were there a lot of people that did not understand the schemes?
For sure. There's like.
Because I feel like.
Dum-dums.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of. So there's like brilliant guys who just get it. It clicks. They have no problems. There's dum-dums who never get it.
Yeah.
And everywhere in between.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy complicated. And
I would have never thought. That's interesting.
And also like, this is no knock on BYU or our coaches or anything, but it just so happens that the scheme that we ran at BYU when I was there was super basic, super vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't complex, and that was by design. Like, our whole strategy, because we had put in, like, as a starter my last 2 years, we had changed to this 3-4 defense, and it was kind of a bend but don't break philosophy. And our philosophy, like our defensive philosophy, we'll be simple, and with that simplicity, we'll execute at a higher level. So everybody knows exactly what to do and they'll do it, but we're not complex.
Yeah.
And then we keep them in front of us. We don't let them beat us over the top. We make them drive the field 15 plays, and they're going to make a mistake.
Yeah, so it's more just based off discipline and simplicity.
That was our effort and discipline and execution.
Yeah.
Rather than like complex, confuse the offense.
Yeah. What do you think is better? Or
it just depends. There's no.
Do you think it depends on the players or
100%? I don't think it's. There's not necessarily a better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that that's what we did at BYU when I played. So that's what I was used to. And that was my whole frame of reference. We called something in the huddle and we lined up and ran it. And so I had no concept of pre-snap checks.
Yeah.
Like that concept
That's
was
interesting.
Completely foreign to me.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, there's like nobody that doesn't have pre-snap checks.
Yeah.
On offense or defense.
Dude, that's something that so I played linebacker for maybe a couple weeks while we had a bunch of guys down.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was because I'd never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
I never played defense in high school. And I was just like, they were talking about these pre-snap checks. I'm like, what is this? Like, what is all this complex? Yeah. So I guess ours was pretty a lot like that too, because I was so confused.
And it's every offense is different, every defense is different, and they differ in their complexity. But like in the NFL, every offense and every defense is complex.
Oh yeah.
And this is just all just by chance. So not only is every system in the NFL complex, but it just so happened that I went to one of the most complex.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Which was where? In New York? Oh,
the Giants. And that was just by chance, obviously. So I went from like one of the least complex to one of the most complex. And that's just, that's how the cards fell. It is what it is. But because of that, I was not like properly prepared for how complex it was. And so it was a huge learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was tough, like mentally it's tough and demanding. And then, like I said, it's just physically, you have these physical freaks. And then the other thing, like the biggest difference, like I've said this to people, like in my opinion, the two biggest differences from the NFL to college, well, from going to college to the NFL, is the speed, and then just how like savvy everybody is. Those are like the two. So more than the size, like the size,
savvy, like intuitive, like with the game and stuff.
Yes. So like the size is a little bit bigger, but it's not like there's some college O-lines that are bigger than NFL O-lines. Like there's the size is whatever. The speed is absolutely faster. And two things, the speed of like the actual players and the speed at which things happen.
Yeah.
So like all that pre-snap stuff, it's just like so fast. And then the plays, like they just happen, everything happens so much faster.
Yeah.
And then what I mean by the savvy is like every player is they just understand football. They understand angles, they understand leverage, They just all the little nuances.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff that like you can get by doing in college that doesn't work in the NFL because
you have to be more savvy.
Yeah, that guy just knows that like, oh, that's not going to work. Like I know what you're trying to do here. They just know it. Like,
Yeah.
They don't understand.
That's
they
crazy.
understand angles. They understand like all that little stuff, and it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
So there's sorry, it's a mouthful, but there's all these adjustments, and you're a rookie, and this is your dream, and it's like in the palm of your hands.
Yeah.
But, unless you're a first or second round pick, like your job's on the line every day.
Yeah.
And you know that, and so the pressure of that's there, and like your body's banged up, and you're all alone and across the country. Like it was tough. Like it was absolutely an eye opening. My rookie year it was tough.
Yeah, no, I imagine. I feel like I kind of saw that with so our starting running back when I was at Utah, he was like not much of a workhorse, didn't really work that hard, didn't ever lift like when we were doing our workouts and stuff, but he was still jacked, right? Just absolutely shredded.
Naturally.
Just naturally. It was so irritating. He would never squat or anything, and he'd go in and on max stage still squat 500 pounds, like easy. And but one thing that really surprised me about him when he was super intuitive, like very smart.
Just gets it.
Very smart. Yeah. And that was kind of eye-opening for me because I was never that way. I was never like a student of the game. And I didn't think I never correlated someone like, oh, well, he's lazy in this, so he's probably lazy in everything else. But that was eye-opening for me to see a lot of guys that even like when they had bad grades and they weren't like the brightest students, but in football they were like geniuses. Yeah. It was pretty interesting to me. So I'd never seen that before.
Our starting middle linebacker at the Giants, I'd never been in school with him, so I don't know, but I would guess that he probably didn't get good grades. And that's just my guess. Yeah. But who knows? That being said, totally a football genius. Just understood it. Like I said, our defense was crazy complex. So everybody in there, every day we're installing stuff, and throughout the year we're installing stuff, and everybody's got a notebook, and they're just taking copious notes, writing down. Mm-hmm. The coach puts all this stuff in. Like you're in hours of meetings every day, right? Yeah. And this dude sat in the back of the room.
Just snoozing?
Just no notepad.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't take a freaking note. And then we'd go out and practice, and then he would execute everything. Yeah. And he's the middle linebacker, so he's the quarterback of the defense. Yeah. Making all the calls, all the checks, everything, and would just...
No, that's wild.
It was just like voodoo. It was just incredible. And some guys are just like that. Yeah, and that's kind of one thing, back to what I was saying about the school system, is like, I do feel like, obviously, it's important to get good grades, to educate yourself, but it's interesting to see the different genius of people, because there's a lot of people that do bad in school, but then they're super smart in sports or business or whatever. Whatever. Because I've seen that so much of guys that go on to like be these amazing entrepreneurs. But so with all the, obviously you have all your experience in football. How did your faith play a role? Like what would you say has been your faith journey throughout all of that, and even till now, like your relationship with God and everything? Yeah, so it was like going back to my rookie year. It was like it was it ended up for me being very solidifying because it was kind of like a fork in the road. It was like, well, you can go this way, which is a way that you haven't lived your life before, but now it's available, it's convenient, it's what everybody around you is doing, it's alluring and enticing, the way of the world. Or you can like double down, reaffirm all the truths and the principles and the values that you have held your whole life, and just like I said, double down this way, the way that you've been going. And that's kind of what I chose to do. Just in this environment, I just kind of thought, well, I'll just put a bubble around me and hold true to like what I know is right and what I hold and value, and just kind of live in this NFL world but not be of it. And that's kind of the way that I went. And I don't know how the results are, but I feel like it worked pretty good. And I just each year after that got easier because you're adjusted.
Yeah.
Just everything is easier. Like, it's just crazy how, as you learn and grow and improve, like, training camp my rookie year compared to training camp my 6th year.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't even, it's like night and day. It was just a breeze my 6th year, because I know what to expect. I understand. I'm assured, like, I know how to study. I know how to take care of my body. Just so many things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was nice that way. But it is tough. Like, it is difficult because, like I said, all those things are there. They're available, and that's the world. It is enticing and alluring. But
Yeah.
I chose to just keep going the way I was.
What do you feel like was the response of like your teammates when with you holding those standards?
Yeah, it was mixed. Some of them thought I was weird, which is fine. Like, I didn't care. Some of them made fun of me. I got made fun of a lot for some of the stuff and whatever. And then some of them were like genuinely impressed.
Yeah.
And would let me know that, and that was always validating and reassuring, and you wonder if it matters or whatever. I don't know. It's nice to have that. So but even if without that, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, I still would have done it the way I did and made the choices that I did. But yeah, there was definitely a mixed reviews, and so.
Well, I feel it was interesting when I was at the U, because obviously we don't have like this incubator of like BYU is, right? But we had, the Mormon boys had a group chat. Like, we were all pretty close together, and but it was interesting because there's certain things that obviously I'm not perfect, but there are certain standards that I had that like I just would not waver from, but I noticed a lot of other guys would, and which is it's whatever. But I thought it was pretty cool, like kind of similar to what you're saying, like maybe my freshman year, sophomore year, the guys would be like, oh, they call me Wood over there. Like, Wood, oh, he's kind of weird. He doesn't like doing X, Y, Z. But then as I grew more into it, it's like they would just respect me, and they just would respect it. And then they would almost like, it's kind of cool to see, like, you can kind of be almost like a beacon to them when they do have questions and curiosity. And I think that's pretty cool. So obviously me and you were both adopted. We met when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
With your whole adoption story, like how did that affect you throughout your life, or did it affect you at all? And if so, like was it talk to me about like the positives and negatives of that?
Yeah. So all I know is what I experienced. So it's like it's impossible for me to know how my life would have been had I not been adopted or whatever. Like, so that's just kind of speculation. But my life experience was absolutely phenomenal. I went to just the greatest, most loving parents, ever. Similar to you, like, you would say the same things about your parents. Like, just great people, a great home, great siblings, a loving environment, nurturing, like all the things that kids need. To develop and to learn and to grow and to succeed. So that was phenomenal. Couldn't ask for more. As you know, like it is just kind of different being adopted. Like, it's absolutely a thing, but it's not like everything. Yeah. For me at least. And I've seen where there's like some kids that like that's all they think about, or that's all they identify as.
Like other people that are adopted?
Yeah. And for me, it wasn't a crisis, or it wasn't like a concern. It wasn't like
a victimhood thing.
It wasn't like in my mind, like you're taking up my mental space. Like it was very low. It was very low. Like I didn't think about it all the time. It wasn't like, but other people they have a different experience, and that's their prerogative. So for me, like it was obviously real. It was a thing, and I did think about it, and usually more like when people brought it up or when I was asked about it or whatever. But I didn't like dwell on it. I didn't have any resentment. I didn't harbor any ill will towards anyone. I just gave unknown people at the time the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
There for sure. I think there's some identity. We'll call them hurdles, I guess. Yeah. And I think every teenager has identity hurdles.
Yeah, that's true.
In the world,
that is true.
Every teenager, there's like a whole transformation that goes at some point during the teenage years, and there's like
just puberty.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's hormones.
Yeah.
There's tons of things. There's hormones. There's a rebelliousness. There's there's a who am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
There's social pressure. You want to fit in. You want to stand out. There's so many things. It's just a petri dish of all that stuff.
Yeah.
For every kid.
It's funny how some people can't get out of even that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been fascinating to me. To see like adults that can't get out of that. They're still in that teenage like mindset. With what about like, and you could be totally honest, I really don't. But like because you went to Brighton, right? How many, or do you even remember? Like, were you like one of the only black kids there?
Yeah. So that was it's a great segue. That's the next thing I was gonna say. Like, with the identity, I was gonna say. So every teenage kid, regardless, has an identity, like hurdle, right?
Yeah.
As a teenager. And then you throw in being adopted, so that's another identity. It's just a hurdle. I wouldn't call it like a crisis or a challenge. For some, it is, but it's just a hurdle. It's like another factor, right?
Well, I think a big thing too. Sorry, just to interrupt, but like is the attention you give it makes it a crisis.
For sure,
in my opinion, it's like it's a hurdle for you because you don't give it a bunch of mental space.
Space,
yeah.
And what you make of it, so
right.
And a lot of that, too, is dictated by your experience. Like, some people who are adopted have a crappy experience.
Yeah, their parents are bad.
For them, I'm sure it is harder. So, anyway, every kid, identity, who am I? Add in adopted. So that's just another variable, okay? Then add in the racial part of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's different. It's different for mixed race people than it is for...
It is, dude.
It's different for mixed race people than it is for purebreds.
Yeah.
Than it is
the pure breeds.
Than it is for the thoroughbred.
That's so funny, dude.
Of any ethnicity.
I feel like I've never like actually voiced that before because I'm not like a victim or anything, but it is funny. Like when I'm around my white Mormon buddies, it's like, oh, hey, Mason's black. He likes fried chicken. Whatever. You know, you have the stereotypes. But then when I'm around my black friends, it's like, oh, I'm not black enough.
Exactly.
It's just a weird, this weird dynamic.
100%. And it's one of those
Obama
things,
talks about that a lot.
It's one of those things where, like, unless you know, you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's not like, this isn't like the end of the world or anything. But it's another variable.
It's just It's
another variable. And there's different stereotypes for all sorts of ethnicities. Mm-hmm. Be that black, Asian, Polynesian, Hispanic, you name it. Like, there's stereotypes, there's treatment, patterns, there's expectations. Yeah. And then going back to like what I said with us being mixed race, like the same things that you just said, I experienced. To white people and white friends, I experienced both like racism and like, oh, well, you're not really black.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not really black.
I kind of am. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that ascribe blackness to how you dress and how you talk. Yeah. Which is just absurd. Like, it's so dumb.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
It is, but that's just common. Like, people, that's kind of how they attribute blackness is how you dress and how you talk. Yeah. Which obviously does not define any race, right? So, and then, like you said, so you experienced that, and then also, and I never really experienced this because here in Utah there aren't a ton of black people. Yeah. And so it wasn't until BYU and then the NFL where I was around a lot of black people and experienced the same thing that you just said. Oh, you're just half black. You're just light skinned. You're not one of us. Yeah. You're not one of us. Yeah. At one point in the NFL, someone said something like, "Oh no, you'd be a house slave." That's what they said. You'd be a house slave. You wouldn't even be out in the fields, working with us.
Oh, so it's even lower class of slave.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's like, oh, come on.
You got different classes. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So anyway, like, that's life. It is.
That's
what
so
it,
funny.
It is what it is. But like back to your thing, like yeah, there is.
It's
like,
only funny because
up,
I feel the same. Yeah.
Growing up, you experience that. You experience this identity thing as a teenager, and then you throw in, they call me Dalmatian, they call me Oreo, they call me all that stuff. And,
oh my gosh.
So anyway,
that's
it's just
funny.
you navigate all that, and that's life. So.
No, yeah, well that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. I feel like I've never talked to anybody about that because it's like no one can relate to it. It's just it's funny.
Well, and
we're a very unique.
I've said this, and this is true. Like I haven't experienced a ton of racism or prejudice in my life, fortunately. But I've said this. I've experienced prejudice from both white people and black people.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. That's like that. Not like, oh, poor me. That's not what I'm saying. But it is kind of unique that I've experienced that from both sides. It's like what we just said. You're get over there, blackie or whatever. Like or like, oh, you're not one of us. Yeah. You're not really black. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well. So, anyway.
I know, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I guess just like closing up. So right now you're obviously, your football career's over, but you're still, how are you staying jacked? Like, what are you doing?
I just work out a lot.
Yeah. Like, really what does your workout regimen look like?
It's really similar to what I did when I was playing.
Yeah.
So I like a huge proponent of the flywheel effect, if you're familiar with that.
No.
So it's just like do you know what a flywheel is? Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
So it's like a big heavy wheel like in a machine, and it uses momentum. So like it takes a lot of energy to get it moving.
Yeah.
And get it spinning fast, but because it's so big and heavy, it has a ton of momentum, and so once it takes a lot of energy to get it spinning fast,
right?
But it doesn't take very much energy to keep it spinning fast.
Okay.
Because it's so big and heavy and has momentum, right?
Right.
So what I mean by that with like training is if you're totally out of shape, it takes a lot of energy to get into shape.
Yeah.
But if you're in shape, and you just keep that flywheel going with your nutrition and your training, it's not the energy that it takes to regain what you've lost or whatever.
Yeah.
So my thought was like when I got done playing is like, well, I'm never going to let myself go.
Yeah.
And then hit rock bottom and be like, oh, I got to pull myself together and like I'm going to get back in shape.
Like a David Goggins type of thing, yeah.
My thought was like, I'm just going to keep it going. I'm just going to keep the flywheel going. So I never really stopped training the way I did when I was playing. I still trained really hard, like explosive, all the stuff that I did when I was playing. So and it's worked really good. So.
Yeah. Well, what?
And then I eat every year I like up my diet like.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
what's important for you? Are you like, because like so when I got done, I'm trying to think. I graduated in 2020, and then I kind of had this. COVID was weird, so you couldn't go to gyms, but. Yeah. I had this weird period of like I want to like compete. I want to do something,
Yeah.
And so I got like addicted to CrossFit. Yeah. Like I was just always in it. But did you ever like get into something like that or?
No, I never did that. For me, it was like pick up basketball and then golf. Those are like my competitive outlets. And then like just with the gym and training, like I have like a competition with myself of like. I write down everything every day I train. I write down everything I do and like the reps and the weights and so I keep track of that so that I can always like measure myself against myself. Yeah. And so I'm competitive that way. But yeah, I know what you're talking about where like your main outlet of competition goes away. So then it's like, where am I gonna go now to get after it, to compete?
Yeah. I think that's what drew me to door-to-door sales so much too, is just because it's so much in my control of like how much I produce, what income I make, and I can gamify it, which is kind of fun. But with what was I gonna say? Like with being, going to the gym and stuff. Do you ever go like with partners, or do you have like buddies you go to the gym?
No, I've had like throughout the years sometimes where guys would come and work out with me, but that's usually. for a period of time, and then they usually fade out or whatever, or change. And so most of the time it's just by myself.
Yeah, it's tough what I've found is it's tough to find people that want to be really consistent.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
There's not a ton of people that want to train the way I want to train.
Yeah.
Who aren't 20-year-olds.
Maybe me and you need to go to the gym together then. I think we should because honestly, I get buddies and like, dude, let's go to the gym, like, because that's just kind of my fun place to but then it's like 1, 2, 3 days, and it's like, I can't get up in the morning.
Yeah, they want to get up and they want to grind that way.
Yeah, they just don't want to do it.
Don't want to hurt that way. I don't want to squat like that.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
And then talk to me about like your like business ventures now. Like what has been your journey? Yeah, what was your journey from like whether it was getting done with the NFL and the money you whether invested, bought business, like what did you do?
Yeah, so it caught me off guard. Like I joked about playing 17 years, but so the ACL caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Just happening, but then what even caught me off guard more was that it would end up ending things. Because I thought, I'll rehab.
You just thought you'd be right back in it.
I'd be right back in it.
Yeah.
And I did. I rehabbed it. I got back stronger than I was before.
Yeah.
And got back
I remember training with you at Tosh. Was that at the time
Tosh,
when after you tore it?
Yeah. So going to Tosh and so I thought, sure, I'll get signed. And I knew like if I was just getting training camp, but I didn't even get signed to get into training camp. So anyway, like my point is that it just caught me off guard. It was kind of abrupt. So I didn't really have a plan. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And so I was still trying and hoping to get to get signed, and an opportunity came up to buy out a book of business from a concrete industry. And so I partnered with a guy. We bought out his assets and the employees and started up so that was 10 years ago. And so we do residential flat work for new homes.
Okay.
So
that's
kind of
awesome.
odd. Like I never like really thought, I'll end up in construction or whatever. I kind of didn't really know what I would end up in, but and it's not like that. I don't know that this will be the last thing I do. I'll probably do other stuff too, but that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And that kind of coincided with like when I was still trying to get signed, and partnered with this guy, bought out this business, and then we've ended up now running it for 10 years. Never did get signed. Still waiting for that phone call. But in the meantime, we've been doing that. So
and if you're not comfortable sharing this, totally fine. But like because I know you obviously got a house and stuff, and what is just to give people like a reference, but what does the capital look like to buy a business? Like, what does that even look like?
It's the range is huge. Like, you could be 10 grand or less to buy a business, or you could be 100 million. Like, it just depends on the business. It really depends. There's no like limit either way. It just depends on the business, the situation, how you structure it. Yeah. There's lots, like the way we did it. Is we put up the money, just cash out of pocket, and bought the business, and we didn't buy the entity, but we bought the assets from this other gentleman who had run the business for I don't know.
So you just bought like the equipment and
so we didn't buy his name or you didn't buy the brand of LLC. Entity, no. Okay. We bought his equipment.
Oh, okay.
Took over his employees, and they didn't like in our industry there were no like firm contracts like locked in. Like in some industries you have like locked in contracts with customers, and in an acquisition those can be purchased. And obviously in situations like that those are pretty valuable because they're locked in, like that's like guaranteed sales, right?
Like contracts in terms of like business that you're getting?
Well, it just depends. Whatever your industry is, if you're, say you're selling a gizmo or gadget, right? Yeah. If you have a contract with X, customer to buy Y amount of gizmos per year, and they're locked into that contract, like
I see.
As a potential acquisition, that's enticing because
it's just recurring revenue.
Yeah, I'm going to have those sales for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Depending on what the space is or what the industry is, the likelihood of the continued sales varies. right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's very high, like whatever the business was doing, like you're going to have that or more.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's in the middle, or sometimes there's no guarantee. Like you're buying a business and it's totally a roll of the dice that you can replicate the sales and the revenue that the previous owner of that business was doing.
Yeah. That
Anyway,
makes sense.
so in our situation, we bought the assets. It was an asset purchase. We used it, like we funded it with just our own money out of pocket. And so we bought that from him and then started it. And then it's been great. You know, we got our money back and then, you know, have made money beyond that. So that's how we did it. You know, there's all sorts of ways to do it. You can pool money and raise a fund to buy a business, or you can get a loan. That's probably the most common, is getting a loan.
And you guys just did cash?
We just did it cash out of pocket.
Okay.
This is the way we did it. And there's, you know, obviously there's huge risk variables depending on, you know, either way that you do it.
Yeah.
When you're doing it with your own money, there's risk, and you're risking your own money.
Right.
If you get a loan, then you're risking somebody else's money, but what's the collateral on that loan? You know, sometimes people will buy a business and they'll collateralize their house with that loan, and the business tanks, then all of a sudden the bank's coming and wants their house, you know, so it's just risky.
Yeah. So what would be your advice for like former athletes getting into like business and entrepreneurship?
I would say one of the things that I didn't do as much of, or a good enough job of at the time, in the moment, that I should have, is like networking and like getting your footprint wide and spread, and just so that then you can, whenever next comes, or even before, like you can leverage and utilize those connections. And I mean, I did some of that, but not as much as I would have or should have, just in hindsight.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing too is just like be forward thinking, and at least have some ideas in place for what you want to do and where you want to end up. Like I literally had no idea my whole focus was like, I'm playing 15 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm going to become a starter. I'm going to make a bunch of money. And then when I'm done, I'll figure out something to do with that huge money that I made.
Yeah.
That's like, you couldn't have told me anything else was going to happen.
Yeah.
At the time. I just was assured that was going to happen, but it didn't happen. So.
Yeah.
And and it did for sure 100% caught me off guard when all of a sudden, oh, now what? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, yeah, I can attest to all that because it's stuff that I've experienced probably over the past 5 years of just networking and getting, you know, expanding my network to know like how to make more money, how to invest the money, how to do everything properly, because it's just stuff that I never learned, you know, even like growing up or anything. So, but yeah, dude, thanks for coming on, and we'll have to do this again, talk more about like fatherhood. Maybe we'll do like a gym vlog. That'd be fun.
There we go.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, but thank you.